Good morning, Latrobe. Today is December 20th, 1929. This is Devin Fierce along Jessica Miller, and this is your daily news from Latrobe and around the country.
Good morning. Good news today. The railroad strikes have finally come to a screeching halt after 4 months of over 400,000 people striking against the lowering of payment for workers. If you can remember, the Railroad Labor Board reduced the hourly wage by a whopping 7 cents back in July, which is a lot of dough. The union workers soon went on strike and were replaced by non-union workers. The U.S. Attorney General Harry Doherty, known for being a bull, persuaded a federal judge to ban all strike-related activities. The union leaders knew they had to stop picketing and return to work, so they settled for a 5-cent pay cut and plan to return to work after this month. This brings back memories of the local strike in Pittsburgh a few years ago. The Pittsburgh Steel Union went on strike because of high pay cuts and poor working conditions. This caused Pittsburgh to close over one half of the industry. But because of concern over a communist takeover, strikes ended early and the 350,000 workers went back to work. These strikes seem to be becoming a trend with industries run by unions. These unionists want wages that compare to the post-war inflated economy after the Great War, but all this is doing is crippling the unions and companies. But now the workers are returning to work after finally being able to compromise with the swanky company leaders.
Let's look back at one of the most famous trials during this decade, the Sacco and Vanzetti trial, which involved Niccolo Sacco and Bartholomew Vanzetti, whom were both Italian immigrants that lived in South Braintree, Massachusetts. They needed money, so they killed a paymaster and his guard who worked for Slater and Mora, a shoe company. Both of the men stole around $15,000 to $16,000 that was used to pay the workers. When police found both Sacco and Vanzetti, they arrested both of the men, and both would be tried for the death penalty. Most people around the region and world were outraged about their arrest. After several years in prison, both Sacco and Vanzetti were executed on August 23, 1927. Now we go live with Susan, to talk more about politics throughout this decade.
Hello everyone. Today we're also going to talk about our 3 Republican presidents in the past 10 years and what they went through with us. You definitely know them, but I'm here to tell you more. First, let's take a look at Warren Harding, the first Republican president in the 1920s. Speaking of Warren Harding, you'll probably think of the Teapot Dome scandal. The truth is, he's not really involved in it. The Secretary of the Interior, Albert Fall, was the one that did all of that, but his reputation was tarnished after his death because of that. So we could say it this way: he's not a bad person, but he didn't choose the right friends. So how did he become a president? Here's the story of his life. Before becoming the president, he spent all his life in Ohio, the place he was born. He graduated from Ohio Central College in 1882 and became a newspaper reporter in Marion, Ohio. In 1884, he purchased a newspaper called the Marion Star with some of his friends. The newspaper business didn't go very well until he married his wife, Florence Harding, who played an important role in his careers. She helped manage the business operations for his newspaper, which became a financial success. She's also the one that encouraged Harding to begin his political career. In 1898, Warren Harding won the election to the Ohio Senate. Later, he became Ohio's lieutenant governor, and he gave a speech nominating President William Taft for a second term at the Republican National Convention. And in 1914, he was elected to the U.S. Senate and stayed there until he became the president. In the election of 1920, he captured 60% of the popular vote. This was the first presidential election that women had the right to vote. After becoming the president, he promised to return to normalcy after the Great War. He favored pro-business policies, so he lowered taxes and made protective tariffs higher. He also limited immigration. When things just started to return to normal, he died from a heart attack on August 2, 1923, in a hotel in San Francisco. After Warren Harding's death, all the things about the Teapot Dome scandal flowed up. Although he was popular during his presidency, he was still considered one of the worst presidents. His vice president, Calvin Coolidge, took his place right after his death. Everyone probably knows him by his nickname Silent Cow. One time there was a woman sitting next to him at a dinner party. She told him that she had a bet with her friend that she'll make him say more than 3 words. He replied, "You lose." Calvin Coolidge, born on July 4, 1872, in Vermont. His father was a hard-working and frugal businessman. He was raised to be honest, conservative, and with a deep respect for business. He graduated from Black River Academy in 1890 and went on to attend Amherst College in Massachusetts. In 1898, he opened a law office and spent the next 20 years there. In the same year, he became the mayor of Northampton. In 1918, he became the governor of Massachusetts. 3 years later, he became Warren Harding's vice president. After taking Harding's place in 1923, he cleaned up the corruption that's left from Harding's presidency and kept on the return to normalcy promise that Harding made. He had a strong belief in private enterprise and a small government. He cut taxes, limited government spending, and set tariffs on imported goods to protect American industry. Calvin Coolidge's presidency was a time of fast-paced changing in social, culture, and technology. He doesn't talk much, but he comforts everyone. He's like a father figure to us. Silent Kyle decided not to run for a second term. Our current president, Herbert Hoover, won the election of 1928. President Herbert Hoover was born on August 10, 1874 in Iowa. He came from a Quaker family, but he became an orphan at age 9. He became part of the first class to enter Stanford when it opened in 1891. He graduated 4 years later with a degree in geology and became a mining engineer. His intelligence and hard work made him a millionaire. When the Great War started, he dedicated his talents to humanitarian work. He helped 120,000 stranded American tourists to return home from Europe. In 1917, President Woodrow Wilson appointed him to be the head of the Food Administration. Once the war ended, he arranged shipments of food and aid to Europe. He then got worldwide acclaim and thousands of appreciative letters from people across Europe who benefit from the free meals known as Hoover lunches. His humanitarian work was a big help for him to win the election, but sadly, his reputation is not as good after he became the president. 7 months after he became the president, banks and businesses failed across the country. Millions of Americans lost their jobs, homes, and savings. But he vetoed several bills that would have provided direct relief to struggling Americans. President Herbert Hoover is planning on running for a second term. We will provide you with more information about it next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. You're always a handful of information. Let's look back at another fascinating trial during this amazing decade, the Scopes Monkey Trial. Some people may ask, why do they call it the Monkey Trial? In Dayton, Tennessee, in 1925, a man by the name of John Thomas Scopes was caught and charged by breaking a law called the Butler Act. These acts say that it is illegal for public schools in Tennessee to teach the theory of evolution proposed by Charles Darwin. While John Scopes was teaching, he began to teach his students about evolution until his arrest. One company thought this was wrong for Scopes to be in jail, so they paid his bond. Now Scopes is a free man due to the help of the Baltimore Evening Sun newspaper for paying his bond. Now here's Anna Wilson with an update on the Teapot Dome scandal.
Thank you, Devin and Jessica. I am standing outside the courthouse where Albert Fall, a friend of President W.G. Harding, is getting sent to prison. He was being charged for taking bribes from oil executives. In his early acts as being the secretary, he wanted to change the National Oil Reserve lands from out of being in the Navy's hands to his department. He later was found leasing the Wyoming Oil Reserve to Henry Sinclair and later to Edward L. Dohey. When Senator Thomas J. Walsh of Montana opened a case, it was found that Secretary Fall had received more than $400,000 in loans for assisting Sinclair and Dohey. He was convicted, and while he was he will be starting his 1-year sentence and was fined $100,000. This is the scandal that will ruin W.G. Harding's reputation as a president.
You need new shoes. Are your soles worn out and causing your feet and back to ache? Come to Edcott Johnson Shoes. We sell over 32 million pairs of shoes yearly. Our happy workers are working hard to make your quality shoes just right. More wear per pair, come to Edcott Johnson Shoes.
Everyone should begin their mornings with something good, and the best choice would be food. Do you eat breakfast in the morning? Scientists said a good breakfast will relieve your stress and make your day better. Build your habit of eating breakfast at Federal System of Bakeries. Don't like to eat breakfast? You will after you tried our delicious and crispy Vienna rolls that are freshly baked every morning between 6 and 8 o'clock, just in time for breakfast. What are you waiting for? Get some Vienna rolls and many other breakfast foods at Federal System of Bakeries on Ligonier Street.
Breaking news. Bombs went off in 8 cities, including Washington, D.C., where Attorney General Alexander M. Palmer's home was partially destroyed. Encouraged by Congress, which had refused to seat the duly elected socialist from Wisconsin, Victor Berger Mitchell began a series of showy and well-publicized raids against radicals and leftists. Striking without warning and without warrant, Palmer's men smashed union offices and the headquarters of communist and socialist organizations. The U.S. Department of Justice, under leadership of Alexander M. Palmer, seek to arrest and or deport all radicals and anarchists living in the U.S. The main purpose of the raids seemed to be to purge the United States of anarchists and radical socialists. However, while many of those are being deported, over 500 so far, are anarchists. Many are simply members of immigrant organizations such as the Union of Russian Laborers. It is estimated that by the time the Palmer raids are completed, several thousand will have been arrested and several hundred will be deported. Now we will take it back to you.
This Saturday, after being found hiding in a stable, William Segala was taken to the hospital. After the doctors gave all the medical treatment they could in saving the right foot, they had to amputate his left foot. W. Morgan was a surgeon at Latrobe Hospital operating on this man amputating his left foot because it has developed gangrene. The lad was reported as coming through the operation satisfactory. Nothing but good wishes and good luck to Mr. Segala from everyone here at Latrobe News Station and get.
Hello everyone, on today's news I bring you information about the Red Scare. This Red Scare refers to the fear of communism in the U.S. This was caused by a number of reasons, including fear and suspicion of immigrants and foreigners fueled by the Great War propaganda techniques. Widespread labor unrest, the rising tide of communism, and a series of terrorist attacks in Homeland. After the war, when the veterans returned, the workers that were avoiding strike at first were not demanding wage to increase to keep pace with spiraling inflation. Now there have been sites of workers on strike to protest low wages. The working conditions have been cited to be very dangerous for workers. There have been particularly long working hours for both women and children. The police in Boston have said they've been given low wages. Now that's bold. A blast from the past. Remember that huge arrest back on New Year's Day where over 6,000 people were arrested? Many were released, but there have been 3 guns sighted at 3 of the people's houses. There have been word of a small group of radicals that formed the Communist Labor Party. Rumors started back in 1990. The same goes for a party called Communist Party, led by V.I. Lenin, and the Bolsheviks have seized power in Russia. To tie with this, with today's news, you've heard about the Palmer raids. Palmer conducted a series of raids on individuals he believed were dangerous to American security. Over 5,000 men and women were arrested, and some are being deported to Russia. About 249 people, but most were freed, and most of them were a part of the Communist Party. That's all I have today. Back to you, Devin and Jessica.
In some more positive news, Greater Latrobe High School has added a cheer squad to their list of activities. These 5 girls and boys are coached by Mr. Stanford and Mr. Poppenfuss. 2 girls, Saxman and Hudson, cheer alongside 3 boys, Altman, Stater, and Duhartley. These students plan to spread school spirit by cheering on the Latrobe football team, which is becoming the Bee's Knees. They also plan to cheer at basketball games, bringing some joy to the crowd at the intense games. Their main goal is to get the black and orange fever spreading through the hallways and at the high school and even within the people in town. They hope to have everyone at the game this Friday when the Cats play against Kiski Area High School. Let's go Wildcats! Devin, go.
Okay, music is becoming such a popular topic nowadays. People are going to the speakeasies and local jazz shows to listen to some of today's most popular music. Now we are going to play you some of today's music that has everyone tapping their toes and dancing in their homes.
Now here's a sneak peek of the band plays Home Sweet Home by Bob Harbing's Velvetone Orchestra.
Yeah. Last but not least, we leave you here today with I'll See You in My Dreams by Mara and Harris.
Someone took you are all my own. Still, I feel the thrill of your song. Lips that once were mine.
Reporting for Latrobe Daily News, this is Devin Fiertz.
And Jessica Miller.
Have a great day and hope to see you tomorrow.
Look up.
Look up.